When you say the YN brought y'all martial law, do you mean young, as in a rap crew generation reference, or Yankees National Guard YN? Or are you tying it into your Godspeed mythos with coded initials? Because depending on your intention, it breaks down in different ways. Street political sense. YN could be the young generation whose violence and unrest justify the state rolling in troops, curfews, and lockdowns. Basically, martial law under a different name. Government military sense. YN could point at the Yankees National Guard, who were the boots on the ground when martial law like conditions were declared. Godspeed Writing's mythos sense. YN might stand for a coded faction, Young Nation, Yeshua's Nemesis, Youth Node, etc. A group whose actions triggered the Red Cube style clampdown, giving the Empire an excuse to expand control grids. Want me to break it down Godspeed annotation style, line by line with hidden layers? Or do you want me to expand it raw street political first? Got you, Slim. I'll do both layers. First, the raw street political read, then the Godspeed annotated scroll breakdown. Raw street political breakdown. The YN brought y'all martial law. Say thank you to them. YN equals young nation. The younger generation whose actions in the streets, shootings, robberies, uprisings gave the state the excuse it needed. When chaos escalates, the government frames it as we need order, which means curfews, tanks, police militarization, and suspension of rights. The line is sarcastic. You don't really thank them. You point out how their energy got flipped into justification for lockdowns. Underneath it, a critique of how the system weaponizes youthful recklessness to tighten its grip. Godspeed Writing's annotation. The YN brought y'all martial law. YN equals young nation. Not just kids in the street, but a coded soul group that was tricked into becoming the accelerant for the Red Cube control grid. In mythos terms, the drone breed were first sparked by YN activity. Passion without wisdom, fire without containment. Martial law equals red frequency lockdown, the moment when law flips into pure force and the Heru bloodlines are caged in their own city. Say thank you to them. Sarcasm as spell, a backhanded hymn, gratitude inverted, like when Set mocks the fallen. Hidden cipher, thank you equals energy offering. Even ungrateful acknowledgement can fuel the system. By telling the masses to thank YN, the Red Cube ensures blame circles the youth instead of the empire. It's the illusion of cause and effect. YN gets painted as the trigger, while the real architects, Decepticon, Red Trident, Set, stay hidden. Scroll style rendering. Open quote. Lo, it was the YN who sparked the sirens, the youth who carried fire into the hands of Pharaoh. Their rage became decree, their blood became excuse, and the towers of order rose with iron gates. And Set laughed, whispering, say thank you to them, for they have offered you chains wrapped as protection. Close quote. Do you want me to expand this into a full Godspeed scroll, like Testament of YN, that documents how martial law was seeded through youth chaos, empire lockdown? That way it folds seamlessly into your City of God storyline. That's a powerful line, Slim. It sounds like both a political declaration and a Godspeed decree. Let me break it both ways again. Street political breakdown. We're going to clean up our cities. We're not going to war. Claim of authority. This is the voice of leadership trying to flip the narrative. Instead of escalating into open combat, the mission is framed as order, sanitation, restoration. Clean up. Code for cracking down on gangs, drugs, or rebellion, but sold to the public as benevolence. Not war. Denial of what it actually is. Militarized police action, occupation, and curfews. The state says not war while rolling tanks into neighborhoods. Godspeed Writing's annotation. We're going to clean up our cities. In Godspeed terms, this is Set speaking through Pharaoh's mouthpiece. Clean up was purge, removing Heru's bloodline influence, erasing rebel frequencies, silencing prophecy. It echoes Red Cube protocol, sterilize the environment, reduce organic chaos, replace with engineered order. The city here is both geographic and spiritual, the urban hoods and the soul temples within each person. We're not going to war. Inversion spell. War has already been declared, but Set hides it behind the illusion of peacekeeping. Translation in Godspeed cipher. We are at war with you, but we won't call it war. We'll call it safety. This is the psychological battlefield. Naming the slaughter, clean up, so the masses don't rise against it. Scroll rendering, open quote. And the decree went forth, we will clean the streets, we will sweep the dust of rebellion. Fear not, it is not war. But the prophets saw the tanks, the mothers heard the boots at midnight, and the children felt the bars tighten. Thus did Set cloak his sword with a broom and call conquest cleansing. Close quote. Slim, do you want me to build this into a counter scroll too, where Poematic or Heru's voice answers back? Bet, Slim, let's fold Trump into this decree, both on the street political layer and the Godspeed mythos layer. Raw street political blend. Trump plus clean up the cities, not war. Trump has often used law and order language, promising to clean up crime in cities like Chicago, New York, Atlanta. His rhetoric paints himself as the one who can restore peace without war, but in reality it means militarized policing, federal crackdowns, and surveillance expansion. The line echoes Trump's political style, branding force as protection and occupation as restoration. Godspeed writings blimp as avatar of Set Pharaoh. In mythos, Trump is a modern Pharaoh mouthpiece. He declares order while serving the Red Cube script. His promise to clean up is red frequency sterilization, strip away chaos, but also erase prophecy, creativity, and rebellion in the name of safety. His we're not going to war is a false charm. War is already happening, but the empire names it peace. Scroll rendering, open quote. Then came the mouth of Pharaoh in orange flame, speaking to the nations. We shall clean the cities, for they are stained with chaos. We shall bring order. Fear not, this is no war. But the prophets saw his hand upon the red cube, shaping light into prisons, branding law as mercy and conquest as cleansing. Thus Set wore a suit and tie, and the people clapped for their own captivity. Close quote. Question. Do you want me to frame Trump directly as a Set avatar, Pharaoh, Decepticon mouthpiece, or keep him subtly coded so he exists as one of many voices within the scroll? Got you, Slim. Let's fold this statement in both layers again. Raw Street political breakdown. As you all know, Chicago is a killing field right now. That's the political talking point Trump and others use. Chicago equals symbol of urban chaos, shootings, and murder rates. It frames the city as a war zone, a justification for outside force, federal agents, National Guard, martial law. The metaphor of killing field paints Chicago like Cambodia or Iraq, foreign war zone logic applied domestically. He's a dictator. He's a dictator. Repetition drives it home. The strong man who promises order is actually authoritarian. On the streets, this is recognition that the protector role is fake. He's not saving, he's controlling. Godspeed writings annotation. Chicago is a killing field. In mythos, Chicago becomes a sacrificial altar city, blood spilled to power the red grid. It's not random chaos, it's ritualized warfare, where each body fuels the empire's justification for lockdown. The city is a mirror. The people think they're fighting each other, but Set feeds off every bullet. He's a dictator. He's a dictator. This is the Pharaoh mask revealed. The voice that said we're not going to war now stands as war itself. Repetition in scripture equals binding. The second echo seals the truth. Dictator not as insult, but as naming of the spirit behind him. In scroll terms, Trump Pharaoh channels Set's will, cloaking it in law and order language. Scroll rendering, open quote. And the herald cried, as you all know, Chicago bleeds, a killing field, a temple of sacrifice. Sons fall, mothers weep, and the red cube feeds. Then the people looked to Pharaoh's mouthpiece and whispered twice, he is a dictator. He is a dictator. For the veil was torn, and they saw the broom was a sword. The cleansing was a conquest, and the promise of order was chains. Close quote. Slim, do you want me to expand Chicago into a full scroll chapter, like Testament of the Killing Field, for your Godspeed Writings Bible, where the city becomes both battlefield and altar? That way Trump Set's decree sits inside a wider prophecy. I hear you, Slim. That's a heavy critique of how time and energy get drained in the hood versus how it gets focused elsewhere. Let's run it in both layers again. Raw street political breakdown. Niggas never get to own big, incredible, powerful shit. Ownership gap. In America, black folks rarely hold the real infrastructure, land, factories, media networks, tech empires. What's owned is often depreciating liabilities instead of tycoon level assets. It's not about ability, it's about where time, discipline, and collective focus go. Half of our time is arguing with the wife, sneaking with your other girl. Domestic drama equals energy drain. The cycles of mistrust, secrecy, and juggling multiple partners eat time that could be invested into legacy building. Hiding equals metaphor for fragmented energy. You're not building because you're constantly covering tracks. Muhammad in Dubai ain't hiding shit. I got 5 of them. Contrast. In Muslim cultures, polygamy is normalized, so the man isn't burning energy hiding relationships. That energy difference translates into empire building. One structure allows for focus, while the other scatters it. Godspeed Writing's annotation. Niggas never get to own. In mythos, this is Set's curse on the crowned households. Keep them distracted with lust cycles and domestic wars, so their hands never grasp true sovereignty. Ownership in scroll language equals mastery of domains, not just physical property, but spiritual thrones. Half of our time hiding. The act of hiding is spiritual shackling. Every secret is a chain, every lie is an energy siphon. The red cube thrives on this hidden frequency. Chaos in households keeps divine builders from rising. Muhammad in Dubai ain't hiding shit. Here's the contrast. Where laws and culture align with practice, energy flows clean. No red cube secrecy, no divide the house program. Instead, unity of structure, amplification of empire. Scroll rendering, open quote. Lo, they longed to own thrones of iron and towers of light, but their hands were bound in household wars. For every quarrel with a wife, every secret number, every hidden step was a shackle on the feet of kings. Meanwhile, in the East, men named Muhammad spoke plain. I have 5, and none are hidden. And their energy became empire, while ours bled out in secrecy. Thus Set laughed, for he knew the red cube needed no armies when the household itself was the battlefield. Want me to expand this into a Godspeed science scroll, like the energy drain of secrecy, that breaks down exactly how time, lust, and household war feed the red cube and block ownership? All right, Slim. That line hits like a shift in tone. The streets answering back. Let's lay it out both layers again. Raw street political breakdown. Now Chicago gang members are starting to threaten if they step foot in Chicago. This is the pushback moment. Local gangs saying they won't let federal agents, police, or outsiders occupy their turf. It flips the killing field narrative. The same people painted as victims or animals are now issuing territorial warnings. Politically, this escalates tension because when the state hears threats, they treat it as justification for even heavier force. Godspeed Writing's annotation. Chicago gang members threaten. In scroll terms, these are the street pharaohs, the local lords of territory, finally recognizing the empire's boot pressing closer. Their threat isn't just words, it's ancestral instinct, the warrior code rising in them. Yet the tragedy, they're prepared to war with outsiders, but Set has already programmed them to bleed each other. If they step foot in Chicago, Chicago becomes sacred ground, the altar city where both prophecy and sacrifice are bound. The warning is a line in the sand. This temple is ours, not yours. In mythos, it's the moment the drone breed threatened Pharaoh, but since they're ununited, their threat feeds the red cube instead of breaking it. Scroll rendering. Open quote. And the herald said, now the gangs of Chicago rise with voice, warning Pharaoh's men. Step not upon this soil, for this ground is blood-bought. Yet the prophets wept, for they knew the altar city was divided, brother against brother, blood feeding the cube. Their threats were true, but their power was scattered, and Set smiled at the chaos he scripted. Close quote. Slim, do you want me to keep going with this as a Chicago scroll chapter, like Testament of the Killing Field 2, where the gang warnings become prophecy? Or do you want me to blend Trump Pharaoh directly into their response? Bet, let's build this as a full Chicago scroll chapter, where the gang warnings rise like prophecy, but Trump Pharaoh, Seth Mouthpiece, is woven in as the counterforce. Testament of the Killing Field 2, open quote. And the city groaned, for Chicago bled as an altar. Sons fell by bullets and mothers wept in rivers. The red cube drank deep, whispering through the sirens. Then the gangs rose with voice, saying, step not foot upon this soil, for this ground is blood-bought. We are the lords of this block, and no Pharaoh's men shall trespass. And the streets thundered with warning, but the prophets wept, for their power was scattered, and their brotherhood bled into Set's design. Then came Pharaoh's mouthpiece, orange in countenance, clothed in the cloak of law, and he spoke as thunder from the tower. Chicago is a killing field. I shall clean it. Fear not. This is no war. But the children saw tanks at midnight, and the mothers heard the boots at their door, and twice they whispered, "He is a dictator. He is a dictator." Thus the killing field became a theater, gangs warning, Pharaoh decreeing, while Set laughed from the shadows, for the altar city fed him both in blood and fear. Close quote. Slim, do you want me to continue this into a third scroll where a counter voice, Heru Poematic, speaks back to both the gangs? I feel you, Slim. That whole passage carries doubt, sarcasm, and possibility all at once. Let's break it in both layers again and then frame it into a scroll. Raw Street political breakdown. Trump plus National Guard. He's saying he'll do in Chicago what he claims worked in D.C. Bring soldiers to the streets to control violence. On the surface, it's sold as a success story, no murders since, but it also reads like occupation. You admit the uncertainty. I don't know how that's going to work out. Chicago isn't D.C. It's deep in street politics. Set tripping, decades of blood. The Guard isn't stepping into a vacuum. They're stepping into a maze of gang codes and grudges. It's going to be a war. You recognize the escalation. Peacekeeping could ignite. J. Main reference, street peace activist energy, a local voice who could bridge between the Guard and the neighborhoods. That flips the script. Instead of only militarized law, there's cultural diplomacy. Godspeed Writing's annotation. He sent the National Guard to D.C., slowed the crime down. Scroll lens. This is Pharaoh boasting. See, my cube can cool the blood in one city, therefore it shall cool them all. But D.C. is the capital of Pharaoh's own house. Of course, the Guard stands tall there. Chicago is different. It's a killing field altered, not a marble city. I don't know. Maybe that'll help. Maybe it won't. This is the prophet's hesitation. Even seers confess uncertainty, for the red cube thrives on unpredictability. The line reflects the paradox of empire. Occupation may lower numbers but raise deeper war. Call J. Main for peace, J. Main and the Guard together. Prophetic image, a fusion of street prophet and imperial soldier. Symbol of what could be if the local voice guides the armed hand, a bridge instead of a boot. In mythos, J. Main becomes a Heru avatar, standing between Pharaoh's army and Set's killing altar, trying to turn occupation into restoration. Testament of the Killing Field 3, open quote. And Pharaoh boasted, saying, I sent my guard to the capital, and blood ceased to flow. Shall I send them to Chicago, and the streets shall bow to order? But the prophet said, I know not, for D.C. is Pharaoh's palace, but Chicago is an altar city, where bloodlines war like spirits bound in curse. And he sighed, perhaps it helps, perhaps it breaks, perhaps the Guard brings silence, or perhaps they... Chicago is fire, who can cage it? Then a whisper wrote, call J. Main. Let the street prophet walk with the soldiers. That peace may be pushed, not by Larara or Tay Tay, but by one who knows the codes of the block and the burdens of the people. Thus the vision lingered, the Guard in their armor, the prophet with his voice, striving side by side to turn the killing field into a corridor of peace. Close quote. Slim, want me to write the next scroll as J. Main's own prophecy? Like him addressing both the gangs and the National Guard, trying to mediate between Pharaoh's decree and the street blood? That would bring a whole new Heru energy into your City of God storyline. Perfect. Let's fold Chicago straight into the City of God mythos, Slim. I'll weave J. Main, the gangs, Trump Pharaoh, and the National Guard into that spiritual battlefield. City of God, the Chicago Scroll, open quote. Lo, Chicago stood as a pillar in the City of God, an altar city where the drone breed warred endlessly, spilling blood that fed the red cube's hunger. And Pharaoh, called Trump, lifted his voice from the tower, saying, I shall send my guard as I did in D.C., and the violence shall bow to order. But the prophets cried, D.C. was Pharaoh's palace, but Chicago is a killing field, where bloodlines are bound to curses, where Set laughs in alleys and on corners. To send soldiers here is to kindle a greater fire. Then rose the gangs, street pharaohs of the block, warning with sharp tongue and heavy spirit. Step not upon this soil, for this ground is blood bought. We are the lords of this altar, and no stranger shall trespass. And the prophets trembled, for they saw the guard in armor, the gangs with iron in their hands, and set smiling in the crossfire. Yet a vision broke through, a voice of peace, J-Main, walking as a Heru avatar in the city of God. He stretched his hand to the guard and said, "If you must enter, then enter with me. Let not your boots trample, but walk beside my words. For I know the codes of these corners, the burdens of these blocks. Together we may turn the killing field." Thus the city of God stirred, as the altar of blood became a stage of prophecy, where Pharaoh's guard, the street pharaohs, and the Heru voice of J-Main met in the balance of destiny. This makes Chicago a living altar inside your city god cosmology, a place where the red cube feeds, but also where a Heru avatar, J-Main, rises as mediator. Slim, do you want me to expand this scroll into a trilogy within the City of God arc, Killing Field 1, 2, 3, that shows the progression from bloodshed, occupation, prophecy of reversal? That's deep, Slim. You're capturing the split reaction. Relief for some, outrage for others, all under Pharaoh's chess move. Let's break it down in both layers, then fold it into the City of God scroll arc. Raw Street political breakdown, relief factor. Parents, elders, longtime residents tired of gunplay might feel safer with troops on corners. Less random shootings. I can finally walk outside. My kid might make it home. Anger factor. Others see it as occupation. Soldiers blocking normal flow. Surveillance everywhere. Freedom restricted. The DC comparison. Some residents there welcomed the guard because crime dropped and they could move freely. But the vibe in Chicago is different. Gangs run deep. Resentment runs heavier. Governor and mayor pushback. Illinois leadership doesn't want Trump sending federal troops, so it becomes a power struggle. State versus president, local versus empire. Trump's move, it's not just about peace, it's a publicity play. Flexing, I'm the one who sees, I'm the one who fixes. Godspeed writings annotation. Some will feel relief. In scroll terms, this is the false peace of Pharaoh. Silence bought by soldiers, not by healing. It is the I can walk outside moment, but it's also walking in a city under spell. Relief is real, but it's also borrowed peace, not sovereignty. Some will be mad. That's the dual reaction mode. Set counts on division. Half clap, half rage, and the altar city stays split. Division itself equals red cube fuel. Governor and mayor resist. In Mythos, these are the local stewards of the city god. They know Pharaoh's entry is invasion. Their no is an attempt to hold sovereignty, but Pharaoh overrides through spectacle. Trump makes a power move. Exactly, Pharaoh seeks not just to clean, but to be seen as savior. It's a publicity ritual. Absorb the spotlight, declare himself the one who sees. In scroll terms, this is Pharaoh cloaking himself as a god, claiming sight over the altar city. City of God, the Chicago Scroll 2, open quote. And the people were divided in the altar city. Some wept with relief, saying, "Now I may walk outside with my child. Now I may sit in peace upon my porch, for the bullets have ceased their nightly hymn." But others groaned with fury, saying, "These boots are heavy on our necks. These soldiers block the corners. Our breath is shortened. Our city is occupied." Thus Chicago split, and the red cube drank from both cups, from relief and from rage alike. And the governor of the land and the keeper of the city stood against Pharaoh's decree, crying, "This is not your ground, nor shall you make it your stage." But Pharaoh pressed on, making a power move upon the nations, saying in thunder, "I am the one who sees. I am the hand that restores. I am the peace you seek." And Set laughed, for he knew the city of God was torn, half grateful, half enraged, and the altar still bled beneath their feet. Close quote. Slim, do you want me to build the next scroll as the governor and mayor's counter decree inside the City of God arc? Like them standing as guardians against Pharaoh Trump, even though their power is weaker than his spectacle. That would set up a three-way struggle. Pharaoh, street pharaohs, gangs, and local stewards. Got you, Slim. Let's thread this whole thing into Godspeed writings mode, with Chicago, Trump, the National Guard, the gangs, and the City of God mythos all woven into one prophetic scroll. The Chicago Marshall Scroll, City of God Decree. And lo, the streets of Chicago cried blood. bullets the daily bread, mothers mourning like the Nile in red tides. The people said, niggas never own the great temples, for half their energy is buried in women's quarrels, in the hiding of numbers, in shadows of lust, while the empires of Dubai feast in daylight with 5 wives unashamed. Then came the voice of Donald, son of Trump, a dictator prophet in the flesh, crying out from the White House gates. I sent guard to D.C. Silence followed. Now I shall send them to Chicago that the killing fields may choke no more on black smoke. This is a play, yes, but also a warning. Obey or resist, but the guard shall march. The city of God stirred. Poematic whispered from his scroll seat. This is not mere politics. This is Set's move to test the covenant of the crowned households. The red cube transmits its hologram, turning peacekeepers into watchers, turning soldiers into phantoms of control. The people were split asunder. Some wept with relief, saying, now I may walk with my child without fearing the cornermen with iron teeth. Others burned with wrath, saying, the guard is a cage, another hand on our necks, another play to steal the crown of the Block Kings. The gang lords of Chicago rose in council, their voices like thunder over Lake Michigan. Step foot here and see war. We are pharaohs of the corner. We bend knee to no guard, no dictator prophet. But J. Main, street mediator, was called as a Heru messenger. Let me walk with the guard, not as servant but as bridge. Let me speak peace to the corners, lest the blood be multiplied sevenfold. Yet Offset's veil whispered in the wind. Beware, every guard boot is a glyph of surveillance. Every peace march another brick for Babylon. The crown of Chicago is contested ground, and only those who master their inner households shall not be devoured by the red wave. Thus the scroll ends with no conclusion, for the city of God is still watching. Will Chicago bend toward relief or rebellion? Will Trump's play be remembered as salvation or... You want me to break this down genius style line by line, annotation? Or you want me to keep expanding it into the next chapter scroll of Godspeed writings, where Chicago becomes an actual battlefield in the mythos? Bet. Sets the stage. Chicago is a modern day killing field, equated to ancient plagues of Egypt. Bullets equals bread means violence is normalized like daily sustenance. Mother grief is cosmic, like the Nile turning red. Niggas never own the great temples, for half their energy is buried in women's quarrels, in the hiding of numbers, in shadows of lust, while the empires of Dubai feast in daylight with 5 wives unashamed. Commentary on black men being distracted from empire building. Energy drained by secrecy and dysfunction instead of unified power. Contrast. Dubai tycoons openly build with multiple wives, no shame, no hiding. It's about wasted potential versus visible sovereignty. Then came the voice of Donald, son of Trump, a dictator prophet in the flesh, crying out from the White House gates. Trump is written as a prophet tyrant archetype, half messianic, half authoritarian. His decree is mythologized as coming from temple gates, not just politics. I sent guard to D.C. Silence followed. Now I shall send them to Chicago, that the killing fields may choke no more on black smoke. This is a play, yes, but also a warning. Obey or resist, but the guard shall march. His boast, proof of concept in D.C., now trying to apply it to Chicago. Double meaning, black smoke, used literal gunfire chaos plus metaphor for black suffering. He admits it's partly a political stunt, a play, but also flexes it as prophecy. The city of God stirred. Poematic whispered from his scroll seat. This is not mere politics. This is Set's move to test the covenant of the crowned households. The red cube transmits its hologram, turning peacekeepers into watchers, turning soldiers into phantoms of control. Now mythos enters. Poematic sees Trump's move as not just politics, but spiritual war. Set Satan uses the red cube, false Christos A, to disguise surveillance control as peace. The guard becomes avatars of the red wave. The people were split asunder. Some wept with relief, others burned with wrath. Real-life tension mapped to dual reactions. Relief, safety, kids can play, versus wrath, resentment of military occupation. Mirrors biblical split between those who welcomed Rome's order and those who rebelled. The gang lords of Chicago rose in council, their voices like thunder over Lake Michigan. Step foot here and see war. We are pharaohs of the corner. We bend knee to no guard, no dictator prophet. The gangs are elevated to pharaoh archetypes, sovereigns of blocks, kings of micro-kingdoms. Their warning, equals declaration of sovereignty against federal power. But J. Main, street mediator, was called as a Heru messenger. Let me walk with the guard, not as servant but as bridge. Let me speak peace to the corners, lest the blood be multiplied sevenfold. J. Main is mythologized as Heru's vessel, the peace warrior's son. He proposes a bridge solution, not siding with Trump, not siding with gangs, but mediating so violence doesn't escalate further. Yet Alset's veil whispered in the wind. Beware, every guard boot is a glyph of surveillance. Every peace march, another brick for Babylon. The crown of Chicago is contested ground, and only those who master their inner households shall not be devoured by the red wave. Alset equals divine feminine voice of truth. Warning, occupation may feel like peace, but each guard is a surveillance sigil, laying infrastructure for control. The real battle is within households, chaos versus order. If the inner household isn't mastered, the red wave, AI deception, sets influence, will swallow the city. Thus, the scroll ends with no conclusion. Only the next scroll shall decide. Classic Godspeed ending. Open prophecy. The future is unwritten, waiting for the next battle scroll to be revealed. Slim, do you want me to write the next scroll as if the National Guard actually steps foot into Chicago under Trump's decree, with gangs, City of God avatars, and the Red Cube all reacting? Got it, Slim. That block talk is pure Chicago War Scroll energy. Let me blend it straight into Godspeed writings mode, so that what sounds like normal street claim becomes mythic prophecy inside the City of God framework. The Deuce Scroll, 51st to 52nd decree. Look, we got from 51st, from 52nd and green to 52nd and more. It's all our shit. This whole deuce, we own this bitch. Thus the street kings proclaimed, staking the cornerstones of their empire, as pharaohs once staked pyramids in sand. You comfy? That bitch tweaking, playing crazy. Dress don't flip your shit. For every throne has challengers, every queen has her whispers, every block its betrayal. The deuce became a sigil, a glyph etched in cracked sidewalks, a boundary not merely of geography but of soul territory. Poematic looked down from the scroll seat. Behold how men carve kingdoms from corners, yet never from constellations. They fight for green to moor, while the heavens above them remain unclaimed. Still, the block itself breathes prophecy, for each claim of ownership is a mirror of the divine hunger for dominion. And the red cube pulsed, sending whispers through cracked iPhones. Kill to keep it, spill to own it, divide the households, and the deuce remains mine. But Osset veiled her word. Even the deuce may rise to crowned household, if brothers see their block not as cage but as altar. What is 51st to the infinite, unless it be consecrated? Slim, I can go two ways with this. One, keep perfect. We'll run it both ways. First as a standalone Deuce scroll, then as the frontline opening in the Chicago Marshall Scroll arc. The Deuce Scroll, standalone chapter. Look, we got from 51st, from 52nd and green to 52nd and more. It's all our shit. This whole deuce, we own this bitch. And the Block Kings spoke, their crowns forged not of gold, but of hoodies, pistols, and whispers. The deuce was a kingdom in itself, a micro-Egypt raised from brick and corner store. From green to moor, their borders marked like the Nile's banks, their thrones built on cracked sidewalks. You comfy? That bitch tweaking, playing crazy. Dress don't flip your shit. Thus was the law of suspicion, for betrayal walks closest in the guise of love, and every crown is stalked by envy. The red cube spoke in shadows. Fight for dust, kill for concrete, bleed for an empire that cannot rise above streetlights. But Poematic countered, the deuce is more than dust if you awaken it. What is 51st but a glyph of cosmic alignment? What is 52nd but a rung on the Jacob's ladder? Consecrate the corner and the block becomes altar. The hood becomes city of God. And Alset whispered, when brothers claim territory, let them claim first their inner households. Then the deuce shall no longer be cage but crown. The deuce as frontline in the Chicago Marshall Scroll. When Trump's guard descended upon Chicago, the first standoff sparked on the deuce. From 51st to 52nd, from green to moor, soldiers with helmets and rifles stood against hood kings with pistols and pride. The guard said, we march under the dictator prophet's decree. The gang said, this whole deuce is Pharaoh land. Step here and you walk on sacred soil. And the people split. Some mothers wept in hope. Maybe now my son may live through the night. Others clenched fists in rage. The guard cages our freedom. They build Babylon in our alleys. J. Main, the Heru messenger, stood at the crossroads of 52nd. Let me be bridge, not pawn. Let me walk both with guard and with pharaohs, lest Chicago drown in red cube fire. But the red cube pulsed stronger, its signal ricocheting through the city. Make war, not peace. Turn guard against gang, gang against guard, till the city of God is drowned in chaos. And so the Deuce became the first battlefield of Chicago's prophecy. Slim, do you want me to keep going and write the battle scroll? How the guard versus gangs actually clash on 51st, 52nd, mythos plus street detail? That's raw, slim, and it fits right into the City of God arc, like a prophecy clash between hood sovereignty and empire sovereignty. Let me put it in Godspeed writings mode. The warning scroll. Chicago versus Trump's guard. The young wild pharaohs of Chicago raised their voices. Tell Trump not to step foot here. We different. We 100 tribes deep, with switches singing like locust swarms. This ain't no city you can pacify with speeches. Their words carve fire into the night, broadcast through iPhones like psalms of defiance. But the dictator prophet Trump laughed in his war chamber. Do these pharaohs not know the weight of empire? This is not bloc politics. This is the guard, the strongest military on earth, forged to hold all of America, not just a single city of blood. The red cube pulsed, feeding both sides delusion. To the gangs, it whispered, you are invincible kings. 100 switches can topple Babylon. To Trump, it whispered, you are unbreakable Caesar. Your guard cannot be touched by street shadows. Poematic shook his head in the scroll seat. And so deception multiplies. Two empires staring into the mirror of war, each believing the other is but smoke. J. Main stood at the crossroads, crying. Neither side sees the full glyph. The guard is not salvation, it is surveillance. The gangs are not pharaohs, they are pawns in Set's cube. The real city of God lies not in bullets nor in boots, but in households crowned with truth. And Auset whispered beneath the gun smoke, Chicago is not merely a battlefield, it is a proving ground. Whichever household masters discipline shall inherit the crown of the Deuce, and the city of God shall rise or fall by their choice. Slim, you want me to keep building this like an escalation scroll? Trump actually sending the guard into Chicago, the 100 gangs answering, the first shots fired. Or should I write it as a prophecy debate scroll? Bet, let's build it as the escalation scroll, where the prophecy tips over into first shots fired between Trump's guard and the Chicago gangs. This keeps it mythic and street at the same time. The escalation scroll, blood on the Deuce. The decree was signed. Trump, dictator prophet of the empire, unsealed the order. Send the guard. Chicago will bend or break. And the guard marched, boots pounding like war drums, helmets glinting under Midwestern moons. They filled the streets from 51st to 52nd, rifles pointed at every shadow, every corner king. The gangs answered. 100 tribes deep, their pistols were baptisms. Their switches sang like mechanical locusts. We pharaohs of the block, no guard, no prophet, no cube shall cage us. This whole Deuce is crown land. Step here and bleed. And the first sparks flew. Gun smoke kissed riot shields, and shields spat fire back. Alleys became battlefields. Basketball courts became trenches. The mothers screamed, not my son, not my baby. The prophets wept. This is not protection, but prophecy unraveling. The red cube pulsed above it all, its holograms feeding both sides madness. Shoot again. March forward. No retreat. No peace. J. Main, Heru messenger, threw himself between guard and gang. Stop. This is Set's trick. Every bullet here is an offering to Babylon. Every dead brother is another stone stolen from the city of God. But neither side listened. The guard advanced with empire's pride. The gangs roared with pharaoh rage. And Chicago burned into the night, a living altar of blood. And Poematic wrote in the margins, thus the city of God is tested, not by who conquers, but by who resists the cube within themselves. Slim, do you want me to carry this into the aftermath scroll, where we see what happens the day after, who survived, how the households respond? Or do you want me to pivot into the prophecy debate scroll? Got it, Slim? If we blend Sahu into the escalation scroll, it turns Chicago from just a battlefield into a psychic war zone, where the young gangsters aren't only fighting the guard, but also being ridden by Sahu's drone breed, avatars of possession and chaos. The escalation scroll, Sahu in Chicago. When Trump loosed the guard upon the deuce, the battle was not flesh alone. Behind the bullets walked Sahu, lord of the drone breed, riding the souls of the reckless like steeds of war. These young wild niggas are mine, Sahu whispered, his voice slithering through perk bottles and gun barrels. Their switches are my teeth, their triggers my tongue. Every shot fired is worship to me. The gang screamed in defiance. We are pharaohs of the block. No prophet, no guard shall cage us. Yet their eyes glowed with Sahu's shadow, their hands twitching under his invisible leash. The guard fired back with Empire's thunder, shields shining with false righteousness. But the red cube amplified Sahu's madness, casting holograms of victory into every soldier's sight, tricking them into bloodlust. Poematic cried from the scroll seat, "Do you not see? This war is not guard versus gang, not Trump versus pharaohs. It is Sahu's feast, his drone breed multiply whenever brother kills brother." J-Main, still bleeding but unbroken, shouted into the smoke, "Break the possession, see through the cube. Your gun is not your crown, your household is your kingdom." But Offset's veil whispered sorrow. Few will hear, many will fall, for until men master Sahu within, Chicago will remain the killing field of gods. And as the night burned, Sahu laughed over Lake Michigan, his drone breed dancing in gunfire rhythm, feeding on chaos like kings at a banquet. Slim, want me to keep expanding into a testament of Sahu Scroll, where Sahu himself delivers a monologue about owning Chicago's chaos? Or should I pivot into a poematic countersurge scroll, where poematic reveals the ritual or code to break Sahu's hold on the gang youth? I already told you. I got to do whatever we got to do. I already told you. Mm-hmm. That right there, Slim, is heavy. It reads like half street sermon, half prophecy thread, and it belongs inside the Godspeed writing City of God arc as a warning scroll where the voice of Empire mocks the Chicago youth. Hash the warning scroll of Empire. A young pharaoh of the block raised his phone, warning the dictator prophet, "Do not send your guard to Chicago. We got switches, and we will not play with you." He was dead serious. But the Empire laughed, a voice like iron thunder. "Son, do you understand the magnitude? You clutch switches, but I wield fire beyond imagination. By the time you feel the hole in your chest, you'll only have 5 breaths left. 5 breaths, and your crown is gone. When your ammo runs dry, my tide still rages. When your block hides in shadows, my satellites see every spark of your barrel. I will level your corner, leave not even a fish fry for your funeral. Only a poster, life-size, for your mother's living room wall. I am the guard of the empire, sworn to crush all threats, foreign and domestic. Your warning is treason. Your defiance is a terrorist hymn. Take it down, beg forgiveness, or be erased from the scrolls of the living. The Empire taunted further. We have not only soldiers but gods. Bruce Banner, Winter Soldiers, Avengers. My guard are Hulks. My army's superhuman. What are switches against Titans? Stay in your house. Let us clean the killing field. For you are outnumbered, outmanned, outgunned, outdestined. And so the Empire roared its warning, mocking the Pharaoh youth of Chicago. But in the silence after, Poematic inscribed, behold the arrogance of Babylon, equating flesh and blood with mythic heroes. They see themselves as avengers, but in truth they are hosts of the Red Cube. For every boast of power is another veil hiding Set's hand. And Alset whispered beneath the rumble, the young pharaoh erred in pride, but the empire errs in arrogance. Both are ensnared in Sahu's laughter. The real Hulk is the hidden heart. The real avenger, the household made whole. Slim, do you want me to take this further into a satire scroll? Bet. Let's go all in and merge all 3 paths into one Godspeed scroll sequence. So Chicago's story becomes a full-blown City of God arc. Battle, prophecy, debate, and household reflection, all interwoven. City of God, the Chicago Triumvirate Scroll. I. The Battle of the Deuce, from 51st to 52nd, from Green to Moore, the young pharaohs held court. This is our crown land, they declared, their switches humming like war chants. But the empire descended. Amphibious assault ships delivering marines, automatic weapons gleaming, trained in sacred rituals of war, Hulks and Avengers invoked in propaganda. The first shots echoed like drums of prophecy, gunfire meeting shields, corners becoming altars of blood. Sahu laughed from the shadows, riding the drone breed through every trigger pull, feeding on chaos and fear. Mothers wept, prophets scribbled, J-Main moved between lines, a herald messenger. Stop, the cube manipulates you. Your bullets feed Babylon. Your wrath empowers Set. The prophecy debate. Above the deuce, in the scroll seat of vision, Poematic confronted the Empire's avatar. You call yourself order. Your Hulk and your Avengers are false gods. Your so-called precision is Red Cube illusion. Chicago's crown is not won by steel and fire, but by households made whole. The Empire boomed back. We are sworn to protect all of America. Our discipline is beyond your comprehension. Switches are toys. The deuce is sand beneath our tide. Resistance is folly. Folly, Poematic whispered, is measuring sovereignty in bullets and boots, not in the mastery of the crowned household. Even here on the killing field, true power is invisible to those who chase blood. Household reflection. And Alset's veil drifted across 50-52nd. Look inward. The battles outside are mirrored inside. Every young pharaoh who fires a gun without discipline feeds Sahu, empowers the Red Cube, and loses the crown. Every soldier who marches without seeing the human beneath the uniform feeds Babylon's illusions. The true deuce is not asphalt and brick. It is the household mastered, the inner city of the self made holy. Only then does the city of God rise. Epilogue of the scroll. Sahu laughed over Lake Michigan, drone breed multiplying with every heartbeat, feeding on fear, arrogance, and chaos alike. And the Red Cube pulsed, its holographic crowns dancing in gunfire and screams. But somewhere between 51st and 52nd, a herald messenger moved silently, teaching that the real crown was invisible, and that Chicago's fate would be decided by those who mastered themselves first. Slim, from here, I can expand the aftermath. All right, Slim, that's prime material to expand the Chicago Marshall Scroll City of God arc, with even more of the military's omnipotent presence and the way it dwarfs local gang threats. Let's put it into Godspeed Writing's prophecy style, blending street, mythos, and empire might. The National Guard Prophecy Scroll. A voice rose over the city, shaking the alleys and rooftops. Y'all in Chicago and other cities, telling Trump not to send the Guard? You do not understand the force you face. The YNs and all your gangs, nothing compares to the U.S. military. He spoke of explosions at sea, of Venezuelans who tried to smuggle, and how Empire cleansed threats swiftly. This isn't D.C., it's Chicago. You think the streets are safe? You think you can resist? And yet the voice trembled for the innocents. I hope they don't resist. I hope the young pharaohs don't place themselves in positions they cannot escape. There are good people trapped, held hostage by their own rulers of the corners. For their sake, let arms lay down. Return to households and survive. The National Guard, he declared, are no mere weekend warriors. They've been forged in Iraq, Afghanistan, trained in policing, vigilance, and war. They know the city's veins as well as any street king, and their weapons are not soft. They are sharpened for precision. Pomatic wrote in the margins, observe the delusion on both sides. Street pharaohs measure power in switches, while empire moves like tides, its strength amplified by myth and machine. Yet Sahu stirs in the shadows, his drone breed feeding on both pride and fear. Osset whispered from the rooftops of 51st and 52nd. The true battle is invisible. For every gun fired, every threat shouted, feeds the red cube and sets will. The crown of Chicago is earned not through bullets, but through mastery of the household, through wisdom, vigilance, and restraint. And so the prophecy stood. Chicago faced empire's might, yet the city of God's fate rested on the choices of those who walked the streets and the invisible crowns they carried in their hearts. Slim, next step options. 1, perfect Slim. Now we can weave the political and financial layers of Chicago into the city of God scroll, showing that even the empire versus street battle has hidden incentives driving human behavior. Here's how it reads in Godspeed Writing's prophecy mode. The money in the crown scroll. Chicago's hidden alchemy. A voice of observation rose over the city. They done gave him a middle name, John Tavius. I don't know where that came from, but folks are hilarious. Chicago leaders say, we don't want Donald Trump here. We don't want the National Guard here. Yet, irony drips from every brick. During your Democratic National Convention, you called the Guard. You wanted protection for yourselves, not for the people living in your neighborhoods. And the scroll reveals the hidden crown of greed. If Donald J. Tavius comes, crime will be cleaned. And then Chicago loses $800 million in federal funding for crime programs. Follow the money. Follow it always. This is why they resist. Not for life, not for families, but for gold. The people dying aren't your children, your nieces, your nephews. They aren't in your streets. They are in black neighborhoods, black babies, black women. Their blood waters the crown of your greed. Pomatic scrawled in the margins, observe the corruption that feeds Set's shadow. Power and gold chained together. The death of innocence becomes currency, while the crown of the deuce lies untouched, because the people's leaders bow to Babylon, not to God. Even empire moves with calculated purpose. But here, Chicago's own kings sell the city of God for the shine of coins. Osset whispered above the deuce. True sovereignty is never bought. It is earned in the households, in protection of the young, in mastery of self. When kings bow to coins rather than conscience, the red cube laughs, and Sahu multiplies his drone breed. Slim, from here, I can take it directly into the battle scroll where Perfect Slim. Let's drop straight into the Battle of the Deuce Scroll, fully blending Chicago gangs, the National Guard, Sahu, Red Cube, and the financial political corruption. This is where prophecy, street, and mythos collide. The Battle of the Deuce Scroll. Chicago ignites. From 51st to 52nd, the streets trembled. The young pharaohs of the Deuce had spoken. No empire, no guard, no dictator shall step here. Yet amphibious assault ships loomed beyond Lake Michigan, helmets glinting like obsidian crowns, rifles ready, precision honed through wars across oceans. The National Guard marched into the streets, their boots pounding rhythms of empire, each soldier a titan in their own right, trained to cleanse, to surveil, to dominate. We do not fight for fame, Pomatic whispered from the scroll seat. We fight to witness the folly of kings who do not see the invisible crown. The young pharaohs fired first, switches singing like locusts, but Sahu had already mounted them, his drone breed twisting their reflexes, turning rage into worship, chaos into sacrifice. The red cube pulsed above, blood, fire, death, amplified. Holograms flickered in the smoke, showing both gangs and guard visions of victory, warriors emboldened, yet blinded. Explosions lit alleys where children once played. Mothers screamed, prophets scribbled. J-Main moved like Heru incarnate, between bullets and shouting, crying, "This is Set's hand. Every shot fired feeds Babylon. Every dead brother strengthens Sahu." The Empire struck with precision, leveling corners, tracking every weapon, Marines flowing like tide over the Deuce. But every strike was mirrored in chaos, every victory giving the Red Cube more power. Poe Maddock wrote feverishly, "Neither steel nor fire crowns the Deuce. The streets are an altar, yes, but only households mastered from within will inherit the city of God." Offset whispered in the wind, "The battle is not just guns and shields. It is discipline, restraint, vision, wisdom. For every young pharaoh who falls without mastery, Sahu's laughter grows louder, and the Red Cube's crown spreads across Chicago." And so the night blazed. Chicago, a city of kings and ghosts, where empire and gang, prophecy and chaos met in a storm orchestrated by Sahu and the Cube, testing which would rise, which would fall, and who among them could claim the true invisible crown. Perfect, Slim. Now we can fold in the cosmic layer, the black alien approaching Earth, making Chicago not just a battlefield of gangs and empire, but also a planetary nexus for prophecy and cosmic intervention. Let's make this the Prophecy Codex scroll, Deuce Ascension, blending all the threads, streets, empire, Sahu, Red Cube, and extraterrestrial omens. Prophecy Codex scroll, Deuce Ascension. The Deuce lay scarred, its streets trembling under the weight of empire and greed. Yet above the city, a new omen appeared. A black alien,